Click links, join channel here over at SubScribestar. So is Hollywood trapped by woke? Yes, that's the short answer. And the problem for a lot of it is social media is letting you see beneath the glamour of Hollywood. And the symbolism of calling Hollywood glamour and the holy wood is interesting because those are kind of those are occult terms. And you look at Hollywood programming people, and I used to hear this stuff years ago, back when YouTube was cool, and it sounded so tinfoil hat schizophrenic. And then I start kind of looking into it, go, yeah, to be fair, some of the people who are really going down that path are, but there's also, then you look at what Hollywood's doing right now, and you're like, there really does seem to be rabbit holes within rabbit holes here. So yeah, Hollywood is trapped by woke, because you get these people get on social media and you learn that, well, they're really not the nicest of people, and you're just not able to forget that with people who really seem to hate the customers, which is and then the thing is, these SJW actors and directors, they're interacting with fans who are getting, it's the internet, dude, you're gonna get flamed, and then they build off of it, and so they start alienating anyone who's right of center, just not a left-wing whack job in Hollywood. And the weird thing is, the left wing doesn't support this stuff. Hollywood is fine alienating right-wing people. They're pretty much open about that. No, we don't want any Trump supporters. You're all Hugo Boss. Fine. Though, I mean, you're kind of forgetting the Michael Jordan adage about, Republicans buy shoes as well. But the weird thing is, the left wing is not showing up for these streaming shows and these big screen releases and the video games like Concord and Dustborn. And like, they don't have an answer to that because they just kind of shamefaced go, oh yeah, I guess we didn't support the last 30 woke movies. Yeah, why is that? Why'd you guys go see Barbie with the two blondest people out of Aryan Central Cast? And I thought that's like, you turn off the sound, and I would love to do it. Turn off the sound, put in have Flood over at Odyssey put in some alternative voices over that. It could be like a World War II propaganda or something, but for the other side, it's it's bizarre. I look at that movie and they go like, oh, we had a BLT person play one of the roles, and we had a fat actor play one of the roles, and there's some other diversity, and you go, yeah, but the two central roles were fascinating in their like just peak Ubermensch European. So how Hollywood ends is not with a coke-fueled bang, but with a woke, soylent whimper, because eventually even State Street, BlackRock, and Vanguard run out of other people's money. So let's use Star Wars as an example. And blaming the fans is a bizarre strategy, because it would seem like they just get upset and tell you to take a hike. The shows on streaming are mediocre at best, and I would think that for the money the actors are being paid, the actors would be a lot nicer to the people who are paying their bills. But that's how deep of an echo chamber they're in, where they're so far removed from reality. Where I remember in the Comicsgate days, some of the comic pros in question marks were saying like, we don't sell to the customer, we sell to the stores. And they legitimately said that. You look at them, you're like, how do you say this with a straight face? Like, how come your own people aren't looking around and like poking you and go like, yeah, but the customer buys from the stores. It's a ridiculous argument. And like, when they don't buy from the stores, the comics don't sell, and then the stores go out of business, and then you lose the infrastructure that took 70 years to develop. It's a bizarre flex to destroy your own industry, and then also insult the few people who are still buying the thing is, most of us are polite to the people who are paying our bills. And even if you have a mediocre show, you can still get an audience just by being on social media and engaging with people politely. Let the audience know that you're reading their posts and just generally having a great time involved with the show. I talk to people on SubScribestar all the time. Henry Cavill respected the audience, which is probably why DC fired him. He didn't want The Witcher to get ridiculous, as a female director, I think it was a bunch of females on the top there. So he left the show, and I have no idea how well it's doing today with the new guy. Keep in mind, James Gunn, the Epstein Island guy, didn't want to use him as Superman, probably because Cavill doesn't have a prurient interest in those under the age of majority, and that offends the baby hemoglobin drinking vampire, James Gunn. It's an entirely different worldview, and it takes lack of self-awareness to a level that you just don't understand, because it's a pattern that has never worked, and yet they keep trying it. And by all means, most of us are cheering on Disney and Amazon. Amazon never got a business, but all the Netflix, any company that's Warner Brothers that's trying to push this kind of crap, by all means, guys, double down. We want more trans BLT furry representation. We're not going to pay to support it or even go sail the high seas for the stuff, but because it hurts Disney, and Disney needs to go into whatever chapter 11 or 13. It make forced feminist diversity propaganda, and then the plot and the motivation don't make any sense because humans are not fungible. And that's, like, ultimately this is why I'm still on YouTube, is because this is a battle between the globalist left-hand path and the nationalist right-hand path. And the people who are pushing this stuff in Hollywood, and they're even losing money to do it, and in video games now too, the sickness has spread, very much have a dangerous agenda. But they have to believe that people are fungible, that they're just interchangeable cogs in a communist machine. It's like reality obviously dictates different. And the thing is, people are just not watching this kind of stuff. Not even left-wing people are watching a lot of this stuff. If She-Hulk's a great example, you would think that would be made for the woke SJW chicks, but the numbers just didn't show up. Oh, yeah, but we owned the Chads who didn't watch it. It's a bizarre argument, but they keep saying the same stuff. So the actors and directors go online and call the Star Wars fans goose-stepping Hugo Boss. But it's a politically correct sickness that is all of Hollywood. So they reinforce each other. They think they're fighting a far-right paramilitary YouTube group that is probably dangerous and also happens to watch Disney. When you stop to think about it, it's clearly insane. The Gary guy from Nerdrotic is basically a Hitler to SJWs. But then you go like, well, you point out actual figures who are further to the right. And it's like, well, what would you call those people? Maybe in their minds, modern anti-woke types, the YouTubers are more Austrian corporal than even the original, because they run on emotions and it changes daily. Their puppet masters give them the narrative, and it can change, as you saw with the whole Wu Flu thing. It can change in a few weeks to a few months as soon as they change the narrative, because there's no dogma to them. There's no thinking that goes on. But they do have to figure out a way to justify why their movies are failing, and they are. It must be the alt-right fandom menace that's causing the millions of SJWs to not watch the stupid Disney Plus series or their movies, which is weird, because why would these obese soy boys care what the Geeks and Gamers, Ryan Cannell, Nerdrotic, all those YouTubers think? Why would they even watch their channels? I could give a rat's tail what an SJW thinks. In fact, they're so crazy that if they're calling something a Nazi movie, then it's probably worth checking out. It's like the discrepancy between Rotten Tomatoes scores between the audience and the professional reviewers. Through what magic power does the Phantom Menace have to influence these soy people from not watching the Disney crap? If far-right Twitterverse is saying something is woke, then logically they would want to check it out, so something isn't adding up. Oh, wait, it just occurred to me that maybe the right-wing anti-woke crowd doesn't actually have any power over the blue-haired soy people, so why don't they watch these woke shows that are seemingly made for them? Woke, diverse, feminist shows are made for these soy boys. They say they love this stuff, and we obviously think it's cancer. The only diversity I want is from Sweden to England, good parts of Europe. I want hot blonde girls in bikinis skiing down mountains with Uzis, but the woke crowd says that they value diversity. We don't, because it's cringe. It's those are not our values. And I mean, how many times do I very clearly have to say it? So the big difference is we can just say girl power diversity is cancer and won't watch, but the left says they love it and they don't watch. All they have to do is be honest. Let me ask the Star Wars crowd. With a POC, female lead, you're expecting the POC females to be your primary audience. So in this case, that's about 6% of the country is your potential audience. And to the woke crowd of in-group preferences for their tribe of safe space enjoyers, the audience wants representation and to see their ethnic group presented well. So that logically means groups are only going to watch their tribe's show. So what that ends up with is a balkanization of the media, where if Latins can't watch Asians, then an Asian lead is primarily going to be for the Asian audience. Eventually, you may as well have racially divided production companies, just different movie nights for different ethnic groups, maybe signs on the door, in the bathroom, the water fountain. I would say that you could split things by sex, but the woke literally can't define either sex. All they can do is ad hom or use a circular definition. It's cloudy outside and raining assholes. It's odd that they know ethnic differences, but not the fundamental sexual binary. Keep in mind, this separation is the force they set in motion with their anti-white racism. Maybe they eventually will have different theaters for the different tribes, maybe locked behind walls in a fortified city-state. So of that group of Pox women, what percentage of these black females care about Star Wars? Well, it turns out there's a very small percentage of them. Who saw that coming? Shocking, I know. So that's the simple math. I mean, what would they watch? They watch like reality shows, because women in general watch reality shows, I think. So that's the simple math as to one of the contributing factor in the low audience. It's a small demographic to start with, and then the crossover with Star Wars interest is low, which is why the shows don't get second seasons. Your biggest potential and actual audience, and those are two different things, is going to be American men of European descent. Then demographically speaking and practically speaking, it's probably Latin, Black, and then Asian. Asians might be overrepresented with sci-fi fantasy. The female audience in general for this kind of stuff is low. Harry Potter is like the top 20 movies for women. Like all 10 Harry Potter movies and spin-offs are considered like the top female movies. I know it's bizarre, but I mean, men's movies are like Clint Eastwood type of stuff. It's it's pretty much all crap. It's just different flavors of it. So Disney decides to market to the audience that doesn't exist because in their mind they want to use a POC female. They think she is the absolute bottom of the food chain, just absolutely garbage, and that European people are God's chosen people, daily blessed by the angels. I know how batshit insane that sounds, but Disney doesn't give a rat's tail about POCs. They just hate white people to the point that they don't care about money. All they care about is propaganda, pushing their not-so-secret plan. Why make movies that force values and beliefs that the audience doesn't value? The ideas are good. They don't need to be forced. It's okay to not have diversity. And while I think it's cancer, it's actually pretty easy to do it so it sells. You just have to treat people equally. Not equity, because that's Frankfurt School subversion and corruption. Because cover your ears, SJWs. People are not equal. If you want to turn Hollywood around, stop treating non-whites like Untermensch, which I know sounds backwards because Hollywood on screen treats them like Mary Sue, super geniuses who do everything right. Where Daisy Ridley was an amazing space Jesus at everything she did because she's female. The SJWs know what a female is because they hate them. She was floating in because they don't give them character arcs. She was floating in the air, juggling rocks. She was more powerful than Vader and Luke, and she was the person to actually defeat the Empire. So Lucas's original trilogy that started all this was for nothing. Disney bought the rights so they could erase the original white male Ubermensch version and replace it with girl power. I think I was saying the CEO and the board have to be to think that was an awesome idea. You think that because they don't know anything about Star Wars. No, not at all. They understand the symbolism of the blonde farm boy saving the galaxy with his friends. Star Wars isn't a mystery to them. They had experts prepare a breakdown on the movies. That's why they bought their rights for $4 billion, because they understand what the original was. That's why they had to destroy it. Idiots don't get $4 billion together to just burn. The symbolism Lucas put in there had to be destroyed, and he was a left-wing guy for the time, for 77. The 77 left-wing guy would be like a far-right extremists in the modern left wing's mind. The problem with these remakes and remixes is that they didn't feel like Star Wars, and the streaming shows were even further removed from the original. Disney is trying their best to subvert and corrupt it, but they're so heavy-handed, it's not catching on. And it's weird how these globalists have trillions in resources to bind and loose, but they're so impatient that they end up tripping over their own feet, because propaganda doesn't work if it doesn't go out to enough people and kind of, it has to catch fire with a large enough, it's got to reach a critical mass is what I'm looking for. Honestly, somebody on the right could help them make propaganda that is more effective. All they have to do is get a bunch of blonde, attractive people to slowly push your communist message. It's not a guaranteed win, but using an angry pox lesbian is a guaranteed lose. Disney should be stretching the Star Wars glow-up over 50 years, not over 10 years. They rushed so fast that the Disney name... Oh, this is when he sat in his car and attacked the audience for not liking your crappy movie. The Disney name has become toxic, where Disney is the BLTGV brand that wants your kid to go on an island adventure just off the coast of Florida. And obviously nobody on the left wing is listening to this video. They stay in a coke-fueled echo chamber of bullshit buzzwords. That's what I mean when I say unless you're in the legal or medical field, you probably don't understand sociopathy at this level, but it's most of Hollywood. And it's a good sign that you can't understand them, and it takes a twisted mind to, or if you follow pop culture in depth, obviously I don't have a twisted mind, and your only conclusion is that you're dealing with a deranged collection of malevolent demons in human skin addicted to Adderall, benzodiazepines, and trips to Epstein's Island to drink baby blood and sacrifice souls to Moloch. Do I exaggerate? The Harley Quinn spirit-cooking Abramovic Acolyte was just in The Joker, a $200 million bomb that was made to struggle, snuggle, and delete the white male fans, figuratively, via The Joker. That movie was part of a religious ritual for them. The movie is a set of magical formulas that go out to change the universe, but are powered by the naive audience, giving it their psychic energy, except that it doesn't work when either nobody watches it or people catch on to the subversive messaging. And all it takes is those YouTuber, the neurotic type channels, to point out how anti-white the themes are. I don't think he would use that terminology on his own, but it gets close enough for the audience to cross the finish line on his own. And he did read my Rumble comment using that terminology, so credit to him for that. For Hollywood to cast the film, have them explain why the specific ethnic groups they pick for each role advance the story in the strongest way possible. Why is the protagonist overrepresented with darker actors and antagonists with the inverse? Because it really is that simple of a breakdown. If you see fair versus dark, I can tell you who good and bad is, whether it's comics, video games, or movies. Why is forcing diversity a Hollywood value, but it's not the audience value, which is the customer? Their argument is each identity group needs to see themselves as the protagonist, so what else would the conclusion be but to just openly start making different movies for different groups? I understand why Euro America is not watching movies, because they're made by anti-whites, but the whites are only about half the demographic. The other 45% of the population is the nons, with Spanish soon to be the majority. If I was in Hollywood, I'd start making original films in Spanish and then just dub it over for the rest of the country and the world. But then I would also make movies specifically for the Euro audience, dare I say white positive movies. They might as well just stop pretending that this is the country of a few decades ago where you could market mostly to one audience. And at the time when Hollywood was at kind of at its schlocky peak in the 80s, it was mostly demographically European, and then they might have a Goonies Asian sidekick or a black sidekick or something like that. And it was easier to market to people when the country was 80% of one group of people who are at least interested in these movies. And the thing is, obviously, the demographics are rapidly changing. You've got to have to adjust your market. But the different groups hate each other, and that conflict is accelerating as things change. And the problem with Hollywood is, like, people want to have a little escapism. They don't want just more BLM Antifa propaganda put in their face. People get enough of the Frankfurt School from the Soros-owned 200 radio stations or the mainstream media or the universities or the government-controlled schools. They want to break, and it's like Hollywood is like, oh, it's all just the same. You're all coming from reading from the same playbook. Anyway, there's a lot of politically incorrect stuff. I'm kind of editing on the fly. If I was a black chick in Hollywood, I would be so obsequiously nice to the to the fans about how much I love Star Wars. I'd go to conventions and take pictures and stuff because my mind would be like, well, I'm going to play the long game. I know I'm not the most popular pick for Star Wars, but I'm so nice to the fans that eventually you turn them around and they feel like jerks for criticizing you. That's the strong move, and it's like it doesn't take a genius to think of it, obviously, but they never do. they just keep attacking the customers, and then it fails, and they just repeat it. Maybe in the back of their minds, like not their minds, because they're legitimately low IQ, useful idiot puppets. But the people above them think like, oh well, eventually these movies will catch on because they want to get the kids, they want to brainwash the kids, and eventually these things will catch on with the kids, and they will generationally brainwash people. It's how we got generationally brainwashed. If you look back at Hollywood. From about the 50s to about the changeover point was about 63 with I Dream of Jeannie and Bewitched, where they went from a patriarchal Leave It to Beaver type of structure to moving the patter out of the peak to something other, to slowly start belittling and degrading that concept. And you saw that, you see it slowly, but it took like 70 years to do. And people are so brainwashed. They look at like Archie Bunker and Blazing Saddles and Fight Club and Falling Down, and they interpret it one way. But when you put on the glasses, the sunglasses, you'll see it an entirely different way, and that's what generational propaganda is about. Anyway, I'll put the other version of this, which is actually, believe it or not, longer on SubScribeStar. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys all next episode.